Hi, today we're going to be talking about how to cut up a chicken. And let me get a little background for you first. First, it is much cheaper for you to purchase a whole chicken and learn how to cut it up than it is to buy the individual parts already cut up. Basically, you're paying someone else to do that for you. For example, you can get a whole chicken as cheap as, say, 59 cents a pound, maybe upwards of 89 cents a pound. You get to control the cut that you like for you and your family, as well as you get to keep all of the parts. Great thing about keeping all the parts, I usually have a container that's kept in the refrigerator, or excuse me, in the freezer, and then what I do is put them all in there. Once I get 3 or 4 chickens worth, then I can make my own stock. When you do that, you also cut out that company, the third party that's got the stock for you, that you're paying for. This way you're using parts that you already normally would have thrown away. So let's talk a little bit about the chicken itself. First of all, this is a nice healthy bird, very nice large bird. First thing you want to take a look at is what is included in the inside. There's usually a little bag, not always though, and this is going to have some other parts in it. This piece right here is the chicken neck. It usually comes with a lot of skin and fat, and of course they do that so that you pay for the full amount. We're going to remove that and set it aside. That's going to be trash. Then you've got the neck and the gizzard. Both of those would be good for stock, so we'll keep those over there. And then if you happen to be a chicken liver lover, you can take this. You don't want to keep this for stock though. This is going to turn your stock bitter and cloudy. So you want to remove that, save it, maybe just dust it with a little flour, salt, pepper, and pan sear it with some butter. So keep that aside. And then usually there's going to be a heart in it too. And I say usually because the way that chickens are actually produced is they kind of go from one place to another, and all the parts do not actually end up back in it again. So we're going to discard the paper that it came in. Then we're going to take a look inside. If there's any excess fat, if you can get your hands on it and pull it out, that would be good. Make sure there's no foreign objects on the inside, which this one's not. It's nice and clean. By the way, I've already just rinsed this off in paper towel. You don't really want to wash your chicken, but just paper towel it dry. I usually try to do that as soon as I bring it home too, so that even if I'm going to freeze it, so that it's not in some of those juices that have been collecting over time. The tools that you're going to need to cut up a chicken are a pair of good shears, poultry shears. These happen to be Helen Chin shears. I love these because they'll do both left and right-handed, and they kind of collapse around your hand as you're cutting, so they're pretty comfortable. Then you're going to need a paring knife for one of the cuts. Typically a paring knife, this happens to be a Shun. It's going to be anywhere from about 2.5 to 4.5 inches long. And then you need a chef's knife, good cook's knife or chef's knife. The workhorse in the kitchen, those are going to be usually about 8 inches long. This happens to be a Messermeister that's a 9-inch. So once we've removed all of the innards out of it, the next thing that I usually like to do is go through and take off the wing tips. Now cutting off the wing tips, what that does for us, we're going to go right in the joint. So think of it more like a kneecap or a wrist, and you're just going to go right through it. And it goes really easily because it's just the joint that you're cutting through. These are going to be good for our stock. The reason why I cut them off is that they really don't have much redeeming value. They tend to burn when you're cooking your chicken, unless you're doing chicken wings and you like to get them nice and crispy and chew on them. So once I've done that, the next thing that I do is to come up here where the wishbone would be. If there are any foreign objects or any fat that you can get a hold of, go ahead and pull that out and get it out of the way. And then what we're going to do is take that paring knife, and just like our shoulder blades, or excuse me, our collarbone that runs just like this, we're going to run the knife just along both sides of that collarbone. And what that does for us is exposes the wishbone. And I know it will kind of freak you out that you can't have a whole chicken and have the wishbone at the table, but if you pull this out, what this does is it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes it'll break. It makes it a lot easier for you to actually do carving as well as cutting up the chicken. So I've just removed them both out of there. Also have some good sanitized towels next to, so you can wipe off as you go along, or some paper towel. So we've got the bird really ready now. It's time to cut it into what will be eventually 8 pieces. So we're going to start out by quartering the chicken. You want to grab a hold of the chicken and hold it up. Let gravity do the work, and it pulls the joint completely apart. And we're just going to take the knife and pull, and we're just basically cutting through the skin at this point. And then there's that little piece, if you're a dark meat eater, you know that little piece on the back that's called the oyster. You're just going to be putting it right on the knife right underneath there so that it comes off with the thigh. Then I just lay him down and pop it forward, and it exposes the joint that's the thigh bone. And I can just lay my knife there and go right through that joint. Notice that I'm not cutting through the bone, but really what would be the hip or the kneecap. So there's 1/4. And again, hold it up again, take your knife, run through the skin, come back in just a little J stroke to catch that piece in the back, lay it down, pop it forward, and then slice right in that opening that you just created. And now you have 2 chicken quarters dark meat. Now the next step is to start to expose the white meat of it, the breast. I always call this kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, when you open the cave up. Just kind of break it through like that. Now this is probably the hardest cut of all, and that is to put your knife through and just push down across the backbone, just like that. This becomes part of the stock, and that's all backbone. And then when you get it, you've really just got about 7 little ribs that run along the backbone here left. And so I usually take a pair of scissors and just take a poultry shears and cut right alongside the backbone. By the way, this whole process is the same for a turkey if you'd like it also. So just cut this backbone out. And this can be part of, you know, if you really like fried backbone, you can go ahead and bread it and fry it too. But I usually keep it for stock. Now you see that it's completely exposed, and what's exposed now is the breastbone. This is going to be the part that's on us. It would be right down here to the center, and it's one of the hardest bones in the entire carcass. So we're not going to cut through it. All we're going to do is score that so that when I pull it apart, I can just pop it, and I expose the bone completely and the cartilage. Run my fingers down both sides of the cartilage. I'd have to give it a little bit of encouragement right there, just down both sides of the cartilage, and then I just grab a hold of it and pull it straight out. And if it breaks off, it's not a big deal. The cartilage comes separate. This is all part of the stock. Now what we have is literally no bone for us to go through. So I can just cut right through the center, and now I have 2 quarters that have all white meat, 2 quarters that have all dark meat. Now, if you're thinking about cutting yours into a standard 8 pieces of chicken, most people would cut the wing off. And so some poor person gets a little bitty wing and somebody gets a huge piece of chicken breast. So usually if I'm trying to do these in more even sized pieces, I arrange the skin back so that it's nice, and then just cut straight across, about even size through. And you've got those same little 7 backbones that you need, or rib bones that you need to go through. You can just cut them through like that. So we end up with 2 pieces. Again, just straight, lift the wing up a little bit, go right through there. So one person is going to get all rib bones with white meat connected to it, and then the other person is going to get some of those same rib bones, a big chunk of white meat, and then the little wing to go with it too. And then the last step is going through with the quarters, the leg quarters. Really pretty easy. If you think about how ours are, most of us carry our weight around the middle, as well as the hip area. And so that's the same thing with a chicken. You could almost see the fat that runs right along here, and that's the crease that we're going to cut it in. So what I usually do is take this, I feel my finger right here where that joint is, lay my knife in that joint, and then just cut through. And if you don't find it right away, just give it, if you're finding just, you're hitting the bone, just keep moving it just a little bit each way, and you'll notice that it went right through the knuckle or the hip portion of it. So you're just going through that white cartilage and not having to cut through a bone. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of cutting up a chicken, is understanding if you're having to fight with it, if you're having to go through the bone, you're not in the right place. So again, just run it like that. See, you went right through how smoothly it goes. So we end up with 2 legs, 2 nicely cut thighs, and then what would be 4 pieces of white meat. And if you feel like you need to do a little trimming, you're welcome to do that also. So hopefully this has helped you out. Of course, you want to make sure that from a sanitation perspective that you, if they've not been frozen before, you can go ahead and, if your family likes all dark meat for on the grill and all white meat for other dishes, you can freeze it all separately. Feel free to put it in a bag and freeze it. Or just from a sanitation perspective, make sure that you clean up each time. If you ever have any questions, you're certainly welcome to give us a call here at the Rolling Pin and just ask for Chef Dave, or email us at rollingpinonline.com. My email is dwest@rollingpinonline.com. Thanks.